much for calling by. I have a quick journal share for you. I have this lovely lady and her, I'm calling it her little sister. These are two covers I made when lockdown first started back in August, and they're finally finished. Yes, I'm slow. We've established that, haven't we? So I think in this video I will go through this one, and then I'm going to actually do another video for the little one, just so I've got two videos for my own records, and that it's not some super long flip through that that you have to watch. So let's start with this one. I guess I should have done all the measurements, but I haven't. Okay, so this journal is about 22, just over 22 on the cover centimeters by 15.5, with about a 4 centimeter spine, 1.5 inch spine. I've put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 signatures in there, and they're stitched in with a 5-hole pamphlet stitch. This journal cover is made with an old tablecloth and an old doily, and so you can see the age marks on this, and some old lace here. So there are marks on it, just natural aging marks. That doesn't bother me, which obviously otherwise I wouldn't have made it with those on there, but yeah, some people might not like that because they're not pristine, they're old. They are vintage, so that's the way that it goes. So 5 signatures, approximately 10 or 11 pieces of paper in each signature, so about 200 pages in this journal. So yeah, I've layered the tablecloth onto some cardstock that's hand machined. This is hand sewn. No, this is machine sewn. Excuse me, sorry. This is machine sewn, and this is hand stitched on, and then it's machine sewn again because inside here is some cardstock which is also machine sewn, so there's two lots of sewing around there. Okay, through the middle I've put this vintage doily, and that goes straight through the spine, and it makes a pocket at the back here, just a loose pocket if you want. And there's also fabric through the spine as well, and a strengthening, a book spine strengthening fabric as well. So should stand up for a few years, should get a few years out of it. All right. I have used 2 digital kits from the Paper Cameo in this journal. The one's called Floral Affair and one's called Floral Ledger, which I'll link below. And I'm going to turn my light on just to get a bit more light. There we go. Right, so I've made a bit of a layered pocket in the front here. So there's the scrapbooking paper, which gives this a bit of stability. So it's not a super hard cover, but it's not super soft. This is a French kind of document digital from the Graphics Fairy, and some vintage music. And there's some vintage lace and a little cluster there with a rusty pin. And this is a little guest check that I've sort of altered and turned into a bit of a tag with some Tim Holtz wallpaper, a bit of sort of embossed butter paper, and some dyed lace that's dyed in some fruity tea, and a bit of a rusty pin and safety pin that slides in there. Whoops. It's not glued down, so. And here's another tag that I've made, just with some scrapbooking paper, with a little bit of collaging there, a doily and a fussy cut flower, and a little bit of sari silk at the top, and a rose charm. I've used this fabric throughout. This is some beautiful fabric that my sister Jo gave to me in a happy mail. I've tea stained the back of this one. This is a beautiful big fold out book page from a book with the Redoute roses in it. There's a fabric pocket with some velvet ribbon and a bit of pink lace, and here's a fabric tag backed onto some just grid cardstock. And actually this is lightly embossed, this tag. I don't know if you can see it. possibly not. With a little cluster down the bottom there, with lace and little flowers and things. Some vintage music here. This is a little digital, I think it might be a freebie from Artie Mays, and I made that into a little pocket, and just with an embossed index card and one of the little postcards from the Graphics Fairy, one of the printables from the Graphics Fairy, with some gold paint and some old sellotape round on it. Vintage diary paper, 1950s prescription pricing book, and in here is a little clip. I've made a little glassine envelope here, and inside I've placed a little pressed rose. That is one of the roses that my daughter gave to me in a big bunch when I got engaged. And here's a journaling card that I've made, backed with some vintage ledger, and that's a scrapbooking paper image there. That was given to me by my friend Barb. Thanks, Barb. Another one of the digitals, Floral Affair or Floral Ledger, and this lovely fabric again, tea stained 1960s vintage ledger paper. Another tag here made with some beautiful scrapbooking paper that I've got. I haven't backed it because I loved the back, and I've just made this big sort of ruffle with some more of that embossed butter paper, which is like kind of a tracing paper. Some coffee dyed paper here. This is just some paper that I got from just from a thrift store, just some lined paper, and a lovely image here from a book. And then this is the second half, another one of those lovely postcards with some lace on here, and another little postcard stuck on the back with a rusty pin, and some vintage ledger. Heaps and heaps of writing space, because that's just what I do. It's how I roll. So lots of space to make this journal how you want it to be, either writing or collaging or redecorating it, moving all the stuff around. Yeah, it's just not overfilled. Little cigarette card there, genuine cigarette card, and here's a little journaling card that I made with onto some old manila folder, and I've done some collaging and a fussy cut flower on there, and I've just tied some of that lovely fabric onto that paper clip. The other side of that beautiful music paper, I just love all this beautiful graphics on here. The vintage floral ledger and an old book page with a fussy cut blossom on there. This was on my Instagram. I really loved how this little cluster turned out. I don't use bows very often, but been a bit inspired by Kylie from Paper Daisy Journals. Hey Kylie, if you're watching. And yeah, I had this beautiful ruffle. This is some fabric that Joe had found. Oh my gosh, I wish she could get some more. It's so soft and beautiful. Anyway, and a little cluster there, a little note book pad. So this is mostly vintage paper. This is a piece of vintage wallpaper to make this pocket. And I made this little scrappy book with, I've been trying to use up some of my 6x6s. And inside is just a little bit of stamping there, and, you know, just some tea stain paper, and yeah. Nothing too amazing, but great for just some extra little notes if you want it. Some tea stain lined paper, some beautiful vintage wallpaper here. It's gorgeous, and it's got the lovely aging on the back. More vintage diary, ledger, and this is some beetroot dyed paper, and here we go. Funny. This is some napkin decoupage, and I just thought I felt like splatting on some of my Lindy's kind of glittery spray and some white. So yeah, a little bit of splattering in the middle there just because I felt like it. Some vintage lace for a pocket, And this is just a vintage ticket and a vintage 1944, sort of like an insurance receipt document type thing. So there we go, this beautiful cream paper. This envelope comes in one of the kits, the Floral Affair or the Floral Ledger. And I lined it with some quite dark coffee stained tracing paper. I really like the sound it makes, so I covered that, and then I also covered in here just to give it that old sort of look. I just love the sound it makes. And in there I've just popped a bit of just New Zealand ephemera, so an foreign accident insurance receipt from 1946, and another one from 1950, and then one of my beautiful vintage checks from 1928. So they're in there for various little crafty projects, collaging or using them in some way. And that just sits over the page there. And again, the paper clip is actually vintage as well. I found a box of lovely vintage paper clips. They're kind of that real nice heavy steel, and I just tied some little bit of scrappy fabric on there. Alright, and the third signature, more of the digital with some ruffles. This beautiful vintage music book. That's the cover page of some beautiful vintage music. Love that. Some vintage ledger, some more of that lovely cream paper that's out of a handmade book that I found at a second-hand shop. An old book page with beautiful cream paper, some lined, some more from the digital, and that's backed with some piano roll paper. And this is my attempt at copying an old document. So this was recently given to me. I have received a whole lot of beautiful old New Zealand vintage documents, and this was one of them, and I basically copied it onto some painter's masking paper, so a brown sort of paper, and sort of aged it up a little bit. In actual fact, the actual document I copied is in such good condition, considering it's from 1915, but if you look at the original, someone's looked after it so beautifully that I think my copy looks older than the original. Anyway, it's a cool piece of ephemera. Some more of the beetroot. This is a wallpaper digital from Heather at Ruby and Pearl, and that's backing a beautiful old, very old book page just to give it some strength. I love this image. And down here's a little cluster with some old sellotape, an old ticket and various bits, scraps of paper, another old check from 1928, and a little double page out of a very old sort of 1940s rent book, I think. I just like the pink on there. I thought it was cute. Some extra journaling paper. Another one of those beautiful roses from that book, and I've strengthened that with some gorgeous rose washi tape. Done a little bit of dry embossing there, those beautiful flowers. And this is the other half of that beautiful music sheet. More of the digital, some more ledger. This is my favourite wallpaper that was given to me by Lynn. I love it. It's just my favourite. It's beautiful. It feels beautiful. It's got such a gorgeous texture. This is a vintage playing card with Ko-Fi, which is probably a very well-known native flower of New Zealand. And in there I have this little receipt or invoice from France. I haven't folded that. And another piece of vintage French ephemera. 1965. Coffee dyed paper, coffee dyed grid paper. Some more from the kit, backed with the pianola roll. And then I put this in here. It's kind of, it is a bit of a funny eclectic journal. There's no real I don't know, theme to it. It's just a fun journal, but I love these. I've got some old women's magazines and it had these gorgeous patterns in there, so I love these images, so I popped this in. And then I've kind of tipped this in. This is one of my letters from Fraser to Ruth, so you can read the entire letter because it's tipped in like that. And then also there's this beautiful paper that you can write on. Some coffee dyed paper with the doily print, or the plastic. It's kind of like a plastic lace. Sometimes that works for me and sometimes it doesn't, and obviously that time it did. Some book page from a beautiful floral botanical book. Some more of the digital, and then there's that little, I've attached that to there, the little peak of the magazine. More pianola paper. Okay, so this is just the other half. So I've made that into a little tuck, that wallpaper, and in there I've popped some of my favourite account forms. This is from the 40s, and it's just lovely paper, and it comes with a double. You've seen me in this in my journals before. I usually bind it in as a page, but this time I haven't. And another one of the checks. This one here I don't have many of, so I'm starting to become a little less generous with those ones. My checks are for sale on my Etsy shop if you want any, because eventually they are going to be all gone. The wallpaper, love it. And that. I printed this onto some tracing paper. This is one of the pages from the kit, the floral invoice kit. Kind of like just the transparency of that. And some more of the diary. This is a beautiful book page from like a penmanship book. And there's some more of that beautiful magazine with those lovely ladies in their dresses, their frocks. So the tuck spot, there's nothing in there. Something for you to put something in. And there's a beautiful big lace pocket on here, and a napkin decoupage tag with some lined paper on the back. A bit of a fussy cut, that's from the kit. And that's the centre page. I've printed the kit on Epsom premium presentation paper. And then just coffee dyed the back once. I leave it overnight so it doesn't run the ink too much, because I have an inkjet printer. I'm looking at getting a new printer, so that's going to be an adventure, I'm sure, trying to find something that I love. Music paper, and this is one of my little flip outs. I did a video on these, I'll link that below, and I've just popped a little beautiful vintage playing card in there, which I love. And then that's just where it attaches with a little, just sort of very basic collage. Some more from the magazine. And the other side of that book page, penmanship book, vintage book, beautiful smooth paper. And that is the end. And yes, you can tuck some little, whoops, a string. You can tuck some little things in here. Eyelets to close with some seam binding. And that's her. Don't know why she took so long. She just did. But all good things take time. I actually am really happy with how she turned out. I think I was doubting myself there for a while. But there's a little bit of ephemera in there, handmade and vintage. But also there's heaps of space for this journal to become something that is created by someone else, really, and filled with, I don't know, beautiful stories or beautiful art, or both. Yeah, so I hope you enjoyed the flip through. Thanks for hanging out with me today, and I'm going to put the other little baby sister up very shortly. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video. Bye.